The captain's command was barely a whisper, a plea drowned out by the metallic shriek of a seat being violently thrown backward. Airport security is here. They're taking her away. The voice of Miss Vivian Hayes, once so sharp with entitlement, was now a fractured, horrified shriek. I didn't know who she was. You can't do this to me. A harsh, frantic gasping filled the air. The sound of her realizing that her petty cruelty had just cost her everything. A glass of red wine, once a symbol of her first-class luxury, tumbled and shattered, spreading a dark, irreversible stain across the cabin floor. This was the absolute, crushing climax of her humiliation. The sound of her world collapsing around her, just seconds before the general's mother would deliver the final, devastating truth. The ambience of the private, exclusive first-class cabin on the red-eye flight from JFK to San Francisco was supposed to be one of insulated calm. The quiet hum of the engines and the scent of expensive leather defined the space. This peaceful state was violently shattered by the shrill, entitled voice of Miss Vivian Hayes, a middle-aged woman in an impeccably white linen suit, who had clearly prioritized appearance over manners. Watch where you're going. You just ruined my suit. What are you even doing up here, running around like a child? The confrontational opening was immediate. The target of the attack was 15-year-old Naomi Wells, a young woman of dark complexion, who was simply making her way back to her seat after a brief trip to the lavatory. Naomi had inadvertently brushed past the corner of Ms. Hayes' seat, causing a slight, insignificant ripple of her expensive linen. The injustice was blatant. The severity of the accusation was completely disproportionate to the accidental, minor contact. Naomi froze instantly, her shoulders hitching up towards her ears. She was a victim silently hurt by the sudden, aggressive focus. Her mother, Dr. Lena Wells, who was already seated, immediately looked up, her face transitioning from calm relaxation to alert concern. "I'm so sorry, ma'am," Naomi whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to touch you." "Sorry doesn't cut it, girl," Hayes hissed, her voice loud enough to command the attention of the surrounding few passengers. Some people don't understand how to behave in proper company. The ominous hint of future reversal, faint but powerful, lingered in the room. The quiet, deadly stillness that settled over Dr. Lena Wells' face. The stillness of a professional who had just identified an emergency. Fresh, unique opening style. Focus on immediate, unearned anger over a minor spatial intrusion, highlighting the attacker's false sense of ownership over the space. Ms. Hayes, loud, arrogant, and convinced that her hefty ticket price granted her the right to dictate the behavior of everyone around her, stood up. She deliberately placed her hands on her hips, forcing Naomi to look up at her. "You people always think rules don't apply to you. You're blocking the aisle. Go back to your section. Honestly, these flights are getting worse." The discrimination was painfully clear, laced not just with classism, but with a distinct racial undertone. The implication that Naomi and her mother did not belong in first class. Naomi suffered emotionally, the public humiliation making her cheeks burn. She felt the pressure of tears, but refused to cry, clenching her jaw instead. Dr. Wells, a woman of dark complexion in her late 30s, rose slowly, radiating a quiet, dangerous composure. She was a professional, a chief resident in trauma surgery, used to managing crises under pressure. "Ms. Hayes," Dr. Wells said, her voice steady, "my daughter apologized. She is in her seat right behind you. This is uncalled for." "Oh, look," the parent arrives. Hayes sneered. "If you can afford these seats, you can afford to teach her some manners. Maybe I should call the flight attendant and have you both relocated to a place where you're less likely to disrupt people who actually paid for a peaceful flight." The wrongdoer was confident, escalating the threat to eviction. Silent strength added even as Ms. Hayes tried to physically edge Naomi away from the aisle. Naomi stood her ground. Instead of retreating, she maintained direct eye contact with her mother, silently communicating her distress, but also her resolve to remain calm. Then, she took a tiny, almost imperceptible step back toward the duffel bag at her feet, placing her hand briefly on the small, smooth leather bracelet her grandmother had given her. This nonverbal act of dignity and kindness, relying on a sentimental anchor, showed her mother she was hurt but anchored, strengthening the general's resolve to fight this battle on her daughter's behalf. The tension was now a tangible, unpleasant pressure in the cabin. A flight attendant, seeing the dispute, rushed over. This was the low-status intervention. "Ladies, please, we need to remain calm." Ms. Hayes immediately sees the intervention to her advantage. "Yes, calmly remove this child and her mother. They cause a disturbance. I demand they be separated from the rest of the paying passengers." The flight attendant, hesitant to offend a first-class passenger, stammered, "Ma'am, Dr. Wells cut in, her voice now sharp. "No, my daughter and I are staying put. You need to handle Ms. Hayes' aggression." The flight attendant was momentarily silenced, caught between the rules of customer service and the escalating hostility. The low-status intervention failed to restore order. However, a high-status character was watching. Mr. Julian Thorne, the CEO of a major philanthropic education foundation, was seated 2 rows ahead, trying to work on a tablet. Mr. Thorne had a reputation for social justice advocacy and a quiet intolerance for public cruelty. He had heard every word of Ms. Hayes' discriminatory language. He paused his work, slowly removing his noise-canceling headphones. Mr. Thorne started paying attention. Ms. Hayes, oblivious to the fact that a billionaire philanthropist and one of the airline's most valued frequent flyers was witnessing her entire performance, saw the hesitation of the flight attendant as a victory. She leaned in close to Naomi. "Don't you ever think you belong here, little girl. You're a guest in our world." She then reached out and, with petty malice, flicked a hair tie off Naomi's carefully braided hair, causing a few strands to fall loose. This final, personal touch was the peak of the public tension. The physical act of touching Naomi's hair, combined with the outright verbal attack, was the breaking point. Naomi's eyes finally filled with silent tears of pure humiliation. The injustice had reached its cruelest peak. Dr. Wells, seeing the direct physical violation of her daughter, felt a profound, cold switch flip in her professional, organized brain. She was no longer just a passenger. She was a protective mother, and the cabin was her operating room, a space where control was necessary and mistakes were intolerable. The flight attendant, overwhelmed, rushed to the small galley, whispering into the emergency intercom to summon the lead purser and request that the ground crew be alerted for a potential security issue upon landing. This established the inevitability of the public consequence, but it was too slow to help Naomi now. Dr. Wells stepped between her daughter and Ms. Hayes, using her body as a shield. She spoke to her daughter, ignoring Hayes completely. "Naomi, sweetheart, stand behind me. Everything is going to be fine. This woman is a bully, and bullies don't get the last word." This was the internal conversation necessary to sustain the character-driven element. Ms. Hayes saw this as a final act of defiance. "You're defending her? Fine. I'll make sure you both have a permanent ban from this airline, and I'll call my lawyer. You assaulted me with your presence." She was now completely unhinged by her own sense of entitlement. The audience needs to feel the full weight of the emotional crisis, the teenager's shame, the mother's cold fury, and the helplessness of surrounding staff to make the impending status reversal truly satisfying. Ms. Hayes, still shouting, accidentally backed into the main serving cart, causing a loud clatter. This drew the attention of the pilot, who stepped out of the cockpit door, his face grim. The arrival of the pilot, the ultimate authority on the plane, escalated the situation to its final pre-reversal peak. Ms. Hayes, seeing the pilot, straightened her suit, thinking she finally found a superior who would support her. "Captain, thank goodness. This woman and her daughter are harassing me. They must be removed." Dr. Wells stepped forward, the picture of quiet, collected professionalism, ready to defend her daughter one last time before she unleashed her true power. She knew the pilot would follow protocol, which involved removing all parties involved in a dispute, including her and Naomi. She knew she had to act now. She took a deliberate step back toward her seat. Reaching into her elegant handbag, she pulled out a small, encrypted satellite phone, a device only executives and certain high-level professionals are allowed to keep powered on during flights. The story is now paused at the moment of peak crisis, where the pilot is about to make a decision, and Dr. Wells is about to make her decisive, revealing call. This is the optimal placement for the mandated break. Hello everyone. As we continue today's video, we want to thank you for your support, love, and kindness. We wouldn't have come this far without you. Subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue to bring you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. The captain looked from Ms. Hayes to Dr. Wells, his expression troubled. "Ma'am, I need everyone to remain calm." Dr. Wells didn't look at the captain. She activated the phone and raised it to her ear. She spoke 3 final words, her voice cold and professional, cutting through the cabin noise. "This is Wells. Terminate." The captain looked from Ms. Hayes to Dr. Wells, his expression troubled. "Ma'am, I need everyone to remain calm." Dr. Wells didn't look at the captain. She activated the small, encrypted satellite phone and raised it to her ear. She spoke 3 final words, her voice cold and professional, cutting through the cabin noise. "This is Wells. Terminate." Ms. Hayes, seeing the tiny device and hearing the cryptic command, laughed hysterically. "Terminate what? Your subscription? What a lunatic. Captain, she has a suspicious device." The captain reached out a hand, intending to follow protocol, and asked Dr. Wells to power down the device. But before he could, the secure phone at Dr. Wells's ear beeped once, and a voice, calm, masculine, and holding a level of authority that brooked no argument, spoke directly through the phone speaker, audible to the 3 people standing closest. "This is Director Reynolds. Terminate Protocol 47 confirmed. Doctor, stand by for immediate priority boarding. The ground is clear." The words Director Reynolds and Protocol 47 caused the captain's face to go slack. He knew that Reynolds was the head of security for the entire airline, and Protocol 47 was the code for an executive priority asset protection operation, reserved for government officials or CEOs handling urgent matters. Dr. Wells lowered the phone. She looked at Ms. Hayes, and the pity in her eyes was glacial. "I am Dr. Lena Wells," she stated, her voice quiet but piercing. "I am the lead engineer and chief of flight dynamics for the next generation of space launch technology under federal contract. That duffel bag Naomi was loading contains essential, encrypted data that must be at our San Francisco facility in 40 minutes. Your harassment of my daughter compromised a critical mission timeline." The revelation of Dr. Wells's hidden identity, her status, and her immense professional authority, all linked to a federal-level security protocol, was an instant, terrifying reversal. Ms. Hayes' aggressive superiority vanished. Her arrogance instantly collapsed. She saw the expensive, customized first-class seat not as her domain, but as Dr. Wells's workplace. The wrongdoers went silent. The captain, who was one of the few employees aware of the high-level security contracts the airline maintained, immediately recovered and executed his duty. He turned his back entirely on Ms. Hayes. "Dr. Wells," the captain said, his voice respectful and urgent, "I apologize profoundly for the delay. We are making an immediate priority security clearance for you and your daughter to deplane first. We will hold the door for you." Dr. Wells nodded curtly. She turned to her daughter, who was staring, her silent tears replaced by utter shock. She had seen her mother fight a bully and win with a phone call. Ms. Hayes, realizing she was utterly irrelevant and provoked a government asset, started shouting again, but the sound was now pitiful and desperate. "Wait, she touched me. I demand she be punished. I paid $10,000 for this seat." The audience witnessed a reversal with a quiet, fierce satisfaction. Mr. Julian Thorne, the philanthropic CEO who had been watching, immediately stood up and walked over to Ms. Hayes, using his own high-status presence to deliver the instant karma. "Ms. Hayes," Thorne said, his voice quiet and cutting, "I am Julian Thorne. I saw this entire display. You didn't pay $10,000 for the right to harass a child. You paid for a ticket, and you should consider yourself fortunate if you're not detained upon landing. Your racism and cruelty have exposed your character far more than any ticket price ever could." The humiliation was absolute. Ms. Hayes' face crumpled. Thorne's condemnation, a financial peer who was seated 2 rows ahead, was a final, public blow. She was utterly disgraced, not just by the airline, but by her own perceived class. The captain radioed the ground crew with a coded message, ensuring that Ms. Hayes would be met not by a welcoming committee, but by airport security and airline officials ready to take statements. Dr. Wells quickly gathered her things. The immediate threat was gone, but the emotional damage remained. She looked at the flight attendant who had been hesitant to intervene earlier. "I understand your position," Dr. Wells said, her tone professional. "But remember that true service is protecting the vulnerable, not protecting the entitled." She led Naomi toward the front exit. The other first-class passengers, once passive, witnesses, nodded respectfully to Dr. Wells and glared pointedly at Ms. Hayes, who was now weeping silently into her pristine, ruined yellow suit. Dr. Wells's dignity was fully restored by her quiet power and her unwavering protection of her daughter. Her emotional closure was achieved the moment she saw the defeat in Ms. Hayes' eyes. General Dr. Wells and Naomi were the first to exit the plane, stepping directly into a waiting airport security car. They bypassed customs, their credentials expedited by the Protocol 47 intervention. In the back of the security car, Naomi finally broke down, releasing the stress and humiliation she had silently endured. Dr. Wells pulled her daughter close in a profound moment of family connection. "Mom," Naomi whispered through her tears, "I was so scared. Why did she hate us so much?"